All right, guys, in this episode, Mike Green and Nate Stokes talk about something they know a lot about, building a team and leadership.
So Mike, one of the things I really geek out over is lessons that we can take from veterans, special operations veterans, regular Army veterans, Marine veterans, Navy veterans, Air Force veterans, and apply to day-to-day life, kind of non-kinetic lessons. There's a ton of guys that can teach us how to shoot, teach us how to jump out of airplanes, teach us how to drive cars, drive tanks, all that stuff. All that stuff doesn't transfer everyday life really well. But one of the really fascinating things that I like to focus on is leadership, team building, and creating effective units, because I think that's universal and it transfers out into the business world. And I know you have some pretty unique thoughts on that, and I'd love you to share them with the Trigger Time audience.
Well, thank you, Nate. One of the things that I was fortunate enough to do when I got out of the military is I was working for a consulting company, and we would go and train up and consult for the military. And I was fortunate enough to work for a guy who was a senior leader, a former senior leader of a high-level special operations unit, and he gave a leadership spiel there to the folks there that we were training. High-ranking officers were there, and they asked all these questions. And you know, one of the questions that came out was, hey, what do we do to bring our troops back, you know, from this engagement? And our guy, he simply responded, he goes, you know, it revolves around three things. He goes, if one, we make sure that your soldiers can shoot. He goes, I don't just mean shoot. He goes, I mean combat marksmanship, the ability to shoot, move, and hit what they're aiming at. And then two, make sure that they're physically fit. You know, the first guys in Afghanistan weren't necessarily picked because of their skill level. They were picked on their fitness level because they had to climb those mountains. And the third thing being their individual MOS or their individual jobs. He goes, be good at that. So those three things of being able to shoot, physically fit, and then know their individual jobs, they said everything else will just come together. And you look at some of these high-level special operations units that are out there, and they're not focusing on unit movements and stuff like that. They're not focusing on technology. They're focusing on those individual skill sets.
It's a lot easier to plug those ancillary things in, like using cutting-edge technologies, or using a new advanced widget, when you have established baselines in personal skills, the ability to shoot, and the abilities to sustain yourself via physical fitness. I think those things tend to really get neglected in the regular. We want to focus on what's cool for us, and we've lost focus on being brilliant in the basics.
Oh yeah. That reminds me of a good book that I read, and it really came to light after reading that. It was a book called From Good to Great. It was a business book, and it talked about people surrounding themselves with competent individuals, and that goes back to knowing your job, right?
Right.
And they would say that, hey, basically it's like being a bus driver. If you surround yourself with passengers that know how to get to every place you need to go, they're going to tell that bus driver where to stop. Right. And it's that same concept of, having individuals be competent at shooting, physical fitness, and then finally knowing their job, and that bus or that organization will get to where it needs to go.
So I think the takeaway is, if you want to increase the effectiveness of your organization, don't worry about finding ways to bring in the next motivational speaker. Restore faith and restore work on that brilliance in the basics. Figure out what the basic fundamentals that you need the people to be able to do are, and then work so that everybody's proficient in those, and the rest of it kind of falls into place. A lot easier to build a cohesive unit out of that than it is out of a rabble.
Definitely agree. Along with empowering your individuals or your troops, that's pretty much the key.
Trigger Time TV is brought to you by White Feather Precision Shooting, Lock, Bravo Company Manufacturing, Bravo Company USA, Silencer Co., Innovative Gunfighter Solutions, Kinetic Development Group, Nighthawk Custom, Brute Force Training, Longtail Outfitters, Flint River Armory, Zero Tolerance Knives, and ammunition provided by Precision Delta.
We would like to dedicate today's show to the men and women of the United States military and law enforcement, the people that stand in the gap and keep our country free. God bless America.